Hi, my name is Jenna Blair Soroka. I'm a licensed health and nutrition counselor and mindset specialist. I help people nurture a more positive and self-loving relationship with food and their bodies by using a weight-neutral approach and focusing on cultivating habits and behavior changes that allow you to go from the relentless pursuit of the thin ideal and food obsession to exploring reasons behind self-sabotage and embracing your imperfections. It is time for you to reclaim your health and wellness through the power of curiosity, compassion, and courage, and find worth beyond measurement. Today, I have a very special guest. I'm super excited. Her name is Dana Suchow, and welcome, first of all.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really looking forward to our talk.
Yes. So first things first, as I said before we started, usually I do an intro with the bio that you give me, but I figured I would love you to kind of share a bit of your story, who you are, and how you're helping people right now.
Thank you. Yeah. I think this is a great intro because my bio is my story for how I got to where I am is long. And I'm not saying it's long because I've, done so much or whatever, but it's just that from start to here, there's a lot of twists and turns that happened that got me to this point. And, one of the main things was I was raised as a kid with low body confidence. I was very severely, I had a lot of anxiety, and I really felt like my entire worth and value was absolutely tied up into my appearance. And so I, brought that with me throughout childhood into teen. And when I was 26 years old, I developed an eating disorder. So I'm going to try and do kind of the key points that I think are important. And so I got an eating disorder at 26. I also at that time was trying to be a fashion blogger. And so what happened was I was fashion blogging and also struggling with an eating disorder. And very quickly, I realized that those two things, that fashion was fueling my eating disorder. To give you an example, I would exercise to shoot the blog, from Wednesday to Friday. I wouldn't eat anything. I would exercise so much. I'd be at the gym, 3 times a day, shoot the blog on Saturday and Sunday. Sunday night, as soon as I was done shooting the photos, I would binge and binge and binge. And I would do that, because I had abstained from eating and I was over exercising for 3 days. So I was, putting myself into this binge purge cycle. And my purging was through incredible over exercise. So I not very quickly, but I learned that I needed to get out of fashion. And so I slowly started coming clean to my readers and sharing my story with them and sharing what was going on. And, that was very scary. I thought people were going to be like, we don't want to hear from you at all. This has nothing to do with what we want. And instead, people were like, oh my gosh, me too. I'm also struggling with this. I'm also not feeling great about my body. My skin's also breaking out. I'm also struggling with food and these types of things. And it really just opened up the doors for not only my healing, but for creating a community of people to help them heal as well around me. And so I started creating these events around the country, and I was doing traveling, and I was, just kind of hosting body image events. And I was asking people, we do a workshop, and at the end, I would say, where do you think your body image issues started from? And like 95% of people in the audience would say it started from a child. It started when I was young. It started when my dad fat shamed me. It started when my mom was on a diet and said that, certain food was good and bad. It started when my coach said I had to lose weight. It started when my teacher didn't call on me. It started when I was bullied. We have all of this trauma from when we were young that we carry in our bodies, about our bodies, up until we're adults. And I thought, I really want to prevent this. So I really honed and focused in on giving parents, teachers, caregivers, adults, the tools to make sure that what happened to me and all these other women and teens that I've worked with over the years, to make sure that what happened to them doesn't happen to the next generation. So that's really like, kind of the overview. I mean, there's so many little things here and there, but that's really like the overview of, why I'm so passionate about this work and why, I love working with adults to create a better world for for kids and for the future.
So good. And two things that really stood out for me from what you were saying are the words trauma and healing. And I think when people are deeply immersed in diet culture, it's always as if there's something wrong with us, the individual. And when we're getting out of that, I think at least for me and working with clients, we start to see that there's a lot of that deep wound and the hurt that has happened because of it. And defining what healing looks like for people can be tough. So like you're saying, you give people the tools. That's so amazing, because when we're coming out of that, sometimes it's like, okay, what do we do now? Like I see, but how do I feel better?
Right. Well, and it's, I will say it's hard in a way because, I can sit with my therapist or I can sit with a client and we can say, here's the 10 tools on what to do. Or someone can tell me, here's what you need to do. But you know what? We open the door, we walk outside into a fatphobic, a racist, a transphobic, you name it, into this society that is trying to make us feel bad about our bodies, to make a profit. We live in this capitalist society where women's bodies and increasingly men's bodies are the way that companies make money. Our insecurities, there's a great quote, I'm not sure who it's by, but it is, when you feel bad about your body, think about who's trying to profit off of that emotion. And so I will say, I can understand people saying, it's, here's the tools, here's the tips, here's what to do. But we have to look at the reality that we're literally going outside and it's like walking into an ocean of things telling you to dislike yourself, things telling you there's something wrong with yourself, there's something wrong with other people, everyone hates you, you need this product to be loved. And it's not, I'm not going to say it's easy, but I'm going to say when you finally can see that, it's like the curtain is lifted. When you can finally see that, oh, you don't need, this certain wax, or you don't need this certain, skincare, whatever it is, to be loved and valued, that's when you can have those aha moments.
Yeah, very true. And I think it's important to talk about, and I think I'd love you to talk a bit more about it because you're touching on it, just diet culture in general, kind of explaining what that is and how nuanced it is. Like you said, we walk out into this world where it's like fatphobic and racist and all of this stuff, and it's like diet culture is so insidious. It's just very sneaky, and I'd love for you to kind of talk to that a little bit more if you could.
Yeah. So, I love that. Like, it's sneaky. Diet culture is very sneaky because it keeps getting rebranded into self-love, healing, wellness, health. Our parents were on Jenny Craig and Weight Watchers and all of those things. And now Weight Watchers is now WW, and they use this kind of self-love, healing kind of motto. So, and then we also have like juice cleanses and just, the wellness culture, which is now, it's still diet culture, but with, leggings on. Like, it's still the same kind of thing. And what that is women and, and again, men, non-binary people, literally people in general, being told that to be accepted, to be worthy, to be equally paid, your body has to look a certain way. And what that does is that views health in a very narrow way. It views health where we're not, we're not looking at disabilities, we're not looking at hidden disabilities. But, another really great, sneaky thing about it is that it's looking at health wholly as external and not as internal, and wholly as external instead of mental. We when we talk about health, we completely exclude mental health. We completely take away that factor, and we just go, well, if a person's thin, they're healthy. And, there's been times in my life where I was so thin, but I was also so depressed. I was going through a breakup. I couldn't eat anything. I couldn't work, like things when I had my own personal, mental health crises, and that was reflected in my body, and people were telling me you look great. So, we really have got to be careful about the sneaky ways that diet culture gets in. And it gets in, anytime that you think your body, there's something wrong with your body, that is telling you that diet culture has snuck in.
Yeah. just looking for those red flags and warning signs and all that stuff.
But and sorry, and just to add,
Mhm.
it's looking for those red flags, but it's also realizing that those red flags, you only realize they're red when those curtains of diet culture get peeled back, because otherwise we just view them as, this is normal. This isn't normal. I'm supposed to hate my body. I'm a woman. I'm supposed to be on a diet. I'm supposed to want to be, a size 2. I'm supposed to, always be dieting. I'm supposed to say, I'll have the salad. I'm supposed to say, if I eat the donut, that I'm working out later. This is part of what women are supposed to do. And so we have to be, again, like just notice that when we have those things, that some people might not view them as red flags because they're normalized red flags.
Right. Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up, because being in the space where like the curtains have been drawn open for me, and that was like somewhat recently when I was like in it, like you said, it's very like, this is normal. I don't like, there's nothing wrong with me. And I think especially as it relates to disordered eating or eating disorders, we can get really defensive when somebody's trying to open that curtain. We're like, no, don't do it, because deep down it's protecting us, right? Would you say?
Yeah. Well, it's protecting us. And I also think we've spent all of our lives putting money in and investing into a false reality. So I don't want you to break that bubble. I don't want you to pull that curtain back, because if you do, that means that everything I believe in is a lie.
Right.
And it really is, what is that? Is it cognitive dissonance? I might be calling it the wrong thing, but it's, I want to put my head in the sand because I want to believe that. I've spent so much money and so much time, and there's this other part of it that I couldn't possibly be good enough. I've been told all my life I'm not good enough. And you just saying, well, you're pretty enough. You're good enough. Love yourself. That's BS. I'm not going to believe that. Why should I believe that? Because no one else believes it around me. Everyone else is still going to the gym and on a diet. And so, I think we are, this kind of, prehistoric sort of social animal instinct that we have in our bodies of wanting to stick with the crowd. So if everyone around me is still dieting and still doing this, it's very hard to separate yourself.
Yeah. Ugh. I have this list of questions, but I'm just like talking to you. I'm like, oh my gosh. Like,
let's do another session. We'll do a follow-up.
Yes, I love this. Okay, it's funny because before we talked, I was listening to, I think it was like a reclamation talk. It was like a TEDx style thing you did in 2018. And you mentioned, you kind of touched on this already, like the capitalistic view of like profiting off of people. And the quote that I'm going to read back to you that you said, it's like, an insecure person is an exploitable person. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's so true. Like, we're being taken advantage of, and there's so much to reconcile with that. And we kind of touched on that a bit, but it kind of brings me into this next part of talking about language. And why does the language we use, whether it's from companies or just in our households or in schools or wherever, like, why is it important that we are kind of like trauma informed, that we know the impact behind our words?
That's a great question. And people may not want to believe this, but I love the saying, like, your body hears everything your mind says. And I think that is really important. I still catch myself, not fatphobic or things like that, but I still catch myself just, I'll do something wrong and I'll be like, like, what's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? Why would you do that? I still catch myself speaking negatively to me. But if I was in a room with someone else and they did that, I wouldn't speak like that to them. It's like so rude and mean and demeaning. And yet we speak to ourselves, the language that we speak to ourselves, and the language I used to speak to myself is, my heart hurts thinking of the pain that I put my own self in. And so we really, again, your body hears everything your mind says. And if you are speaking negatively to yourself, you are absorbing that language in some way. You are beating yourself down. And if you wouldn't say it to your best friend, why would you say it to yourself? because really you should be your best friend. You know, look, our best friend relationships perfect? No, they're not perfect at all. But God, wouldn't it be amazing if we could all just have this like best friend relationship with our body? Sometimes it gets on our nerves. Sometimes it doesn't do the stuff that we want it to. Sometimes it doesn't feel good. Sometimes it's cranky. But like on just a day-to-day level, if we could just go, this is our home. We are not getting rid of it. We are not getting out of it. Like if we could just be at peace with it. And so I think it's really, language is very, very, very important. And language is also important because if little ears, you know, if kids are listening around you, they're going to pick that language up and that becomes normalized. So not only do we need to make sure that what we're saying is good and healthy for our own hearts and minds, but we have to be careful about what we're saying, you know, when people around us are present, because if you're speaking negatively to yourself, a kid is going to pick that up and think that's how I should be speaking to myself. But the other thing is you're showing people how you think you deserve to be treated. And
Yeah.
nobody deserves to be treated negatively. None.
Yeah, very true. Going back to how like sneaky diet culture is, I know when we're in like I'm in family settings and a lot of the words like good and bad get used, or this is unhealthy and healthy, and the thing is it's very innocent, right? Like we don't think it's as impactful as it is, but if somebody right now is on a health and wellness journey and they want to be that role model for their kids, they don't want them to go through that pain and suffering that they did, what's some sort of transition they can start to make with the language they're using with food?
Mm-hmm. So I love that you brought up good and bad food. And I think that's a great kind of point. Like I would love people watching this to be able to kind of have some tools and tips to take home. And one of my main ones is neutralized foods. You know, when we use the language of good food and bad food, look, I know that eating a salad is going to be, you know, have more nutrients and more whatever than it is going to be eating fast food every day. I get that. But we have to understand that people are allowed, first of all, adults are allowed to eat whatever they want, whatever they buy. That is someone's own choice, and that has no effect on you. So you're allowed to just let people live and let live. But this idea that food is good and bad, what it says is that if I eat the salad, I'm good. If I eat the hamburger, I'm bad. And it's not that the food is good and bad, it's that I am good or bad. So if I'm bad, what do I have to do? Well, I have to punish myself. Instead of just going, okay, I ate a hamburger and my next meal, I'm going to sit and I'm going to go, what do I feel like eating? And if I feel like eating a salad, I'll eat a salad. And that is, you know, called normal intuitive eating. That's, you know, I think that is a really healthy place to be in when we listen to our body and we go, I'm craving a burrito, I'm craving a salad, I'm craving fruit, I'm craving candy, but we are listening to what our body needs. You know, and the other idea too is, you know, let's say we say the Big Mac or the whatever is bad, it really turns into kind of a classist and ableist issue too, because we are judging other people for what they're eating when we know nothing about a person's story, experience, craving, diet, health, whatever. You know, and to say something, look, if you are saying a food is bad because of animal rights, or if you're saying a food is bad because of the way they treat their labor workers, or, you know, because of the greenhouse gases that they're emitting, I understand that. That is a good and bad I can understand and get behind. But if we are saying that food is good and bad because it clogs your arteries or because it makes you fat, then we've really got to relook at things, because eating French fries once in a while and drinking soda once in a while is not going to kill anybody. And, you know, there's this thing with children is, I have a lot of people, so I work one-on-one, I do a lot of one-on-one training with families, with parents, and a lot of times people will come to me and say, my kid, I found hidden candy in their backpack. I found hidden wrappers, or I found some, you know, candy under the bed, or I found something hidden that they're not allowed to have, they're not supposed to have. And this is a really big problem when we say kids aren't allowed to have something because it's bad. It makes that item more taboo. And this happens a lot when we have like abstinence only sex education. It's still going to happen, but it's going to happen unsafely, and it's going to happen behind your back. And so we really, this is again, you know, locking up food, locking up the fridge, this type of stuff. It's like, take the locks off, take the, you know, neutralize the food, make it okay. Because kids are going to do it behind your back, and it's going to be that they're bad, they're punished, and they're going to start doing it in secret, and we'll start having eating disorders develop. So I really think it's about neutralizing food, taking that good, bad out of it. You know, say like, sometimes always language is really good. You know, it's finding the right balance is really good for families.
Mm-hmm. I love the term neutralizing food. It's just anytime you use like neutralize, you're like, oh my gosh, like it just feels like you can breathe more, because you're like, okay, I can feel like it's steadier right now. It's not like it's a scale you're tipping off of, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And you know, there's a great book. I forgot who it's by, but it's called Intuitive Eating. If you, not a shameless self plug, I hate saying this, but if you go to danasuchow.com/resources, I have a whole reading list, podcast list, you know, body positive people accounts to follow on social media, that kind of thing. So if you go there, there's a great book called Intuitive Eating. And yes, Intuitive Eating handbook. Yes.
Evelyn and Elise, right?
Taboli, is that Triboli?
Triple. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry if she ever watches this, but
I know, right. No, that's a great book for anyone that is trying to learn about intuitive eating, trying to take the negative away. You know, to share just a personal anecdote. So when I was in my eating disorder recovery, you know, I would binge on stuff, and then I wouldn't allow anything in the house because it was all bad. And then 2 days later, I'd binge again. You know, I mean, and you know, the interesting thing is, you can find ways to binge on health food too. When you have an eating disorder. I mean, the amount of carrots, and I dipped in hummus because chips were bad, but I would eat till I got sick. I mean, you know, it's wild. But when I first really was kind of getting into my recovery, I had read, I don't remember what book I was reading, but they said, start, you know, go to the store, buy all of your fear foods, buy everything that's bad, but stock up on them. So you've got so many Cheetos in your house that you literally can't eat the whole bag because the house is just full of them. And I did that, and I bought, you know, like cookie dough, and I bought Cheetos, and I just bought like, you know, crap that I was calling it, bad food, and I stuffed my house with it. And I probably ate that stuff for about a week. And I will tell you, eating Cheetos for a week, it makes you pretty sick of Cheetos. When you finally allow yourself to have those Cheetos, and you know what, you also have to go, you might gain a couple pounds. You might, you know, things might go a little out of whack for a couple weeks because you've got to let your body acclimate and recalibrate. But when I let myself have Cheetos for breakfast, cookie dough for, you know, lunch, all this stuff, and I just let my mind know that that stuff was normal and not off limits, and I could have it whenever I wanted. The anxiety and the feelings of restriction slowly started going away. Mm-hmm. So I'm not telling anyone that they have to stock up on Cheetos, but I am saying, you know, getting rid of that restriction mentality of bad food, you know, fattening food, all of this stuff, and going, you are allowed to have anything that you want to feed your body when you are truly listening to your body and feeding it good food that feels good. And feeling good can be ice cream. Like we need, you know, it's not just about calories in, calories out. It's about enjoying life and enjoying food.
Yeah. Like basically what I hear is like, you're talking about unconditional permission to eat, right? You're like, just give all the food, eat it, because one of the fears is that we're going to lose control. I think when it comes to disordered eating disorders, anything with health and wellness, it's very like, I know for me, I'm always trying to find control, and food can be very something that we can control, at least this sense of control, right? This idea. And so lifting that restrictiveness off of ourselves, like there's so much research, which I'm sure I don't have to tell you, but for people out there, like there's a lot of research on restriction showing the impact that has on our mental health and physical health, where we want to eat those things that we're restricting. And so your anecdote, your story just proves to that point where you have to let yourself be around foods that you fear, which is scary. So it's like everybody's at a different stage, right?
Yeah, and it's, you know, it's scary and it's interesting to look back and go, wow, it's wild that like a cookie is scary. And I'm not saying that it's, you know, I'm not dismissing anyone's fears. I felt that too. But when you go further in your healing and then to look back and go that a cookie or that eating, you know, mashed potatoes instead of the salad made me avoid going out, made me avoid my life, made me avoid being happy. You start when you can zoom out a little bit, when you can zoom out of the minute by minute that's happening in your life and go, I don't want to be doing this when I'm 60. I don't want to be doing this when I'm 50, when I'm 80. I don't want to be doing this now. And just realizing that, you know, in the grand scheme of life, there's so much more happening. There's so many things we're missing out on. And that's why it's like healing from this stuff is so powerful and so life-changing. And, you know, yeah, are you going to have bumps in the road? Sure. Who doesn't have bumps in the road? But I think one of the main things is that when something bad happens, when you feel like you've taken a step back, is instead of thinking that this is, you know, a back step or I've messed up or I was so much better last week than I am now, the first thing is to go, well, you're always learning. You're always learning. You're always moving forward. You know, you always know more this week than you did last week. So you haven't gone backwards. But this idea that healing is like this or it's like this, I just don't believe it. I think life is like a ping pong and we are always bouncing around. There's no forward, there's no back, there is just time, space, continuum, whatever, wherever we are. And so if you can just go, this is what happened today. It has no effect on my future, my past, whatever. I binged. Cool. That happened. Moving on. You know, those were really helpful things that have helped me get through this.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for sharing that. Just the redefining what healing is, because I know I was just even talking to a friend the other day regarding this, and for us, it's like there's this destination we're trying to reach, and that's what's also holding us back. So redefining healing with a more compassionate perspective is very helpful.
Right. I mean, that's the thing. Like, look, okay, you're doing your healing, you're doing therapy, you're doing all this, and you had a binge. Well, if your best friend came to you and said, I messed up, I had a binge, would you say, you're so bad, I can't believe it, you know, did you learn anything in therapy last week? What's wrong with you? Or would you say, oh, that sucks. Okay, well, you know, just listen to your body this next meal. It's going to be okay. Like, you've survived many big meals in your entire life, and this will not be your last. So just get excited about the next meal.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
like, really just having some compassion, you know. And there's just one other thing I want to add is like, you know, when I had my eating disorder and I would eat a lot and I felt really full, I would feel disgusting. Like I was disgusted with myself. I hate not just my physical, I hated my body, but disgusted that I didn't have any control. You know, how could I do this? And it's like, if we think about it, there's been so many times when I was a kid and I ate a full meal and I was like, I'm so full. And I didn't think for a second I was bad or stupid or there was anything wrong with me. I just thought I ate a bunch of food and I was super, super full. And then you know what? A couple hours later, I got hungry again. And I got hungry again and I ate again. I mean, you know, there wasn't this thing of fullness equals bad. And so if we can also just go like having food in our stomach, feeling full, like that's a normal part of living. Obviously, we don't want every meal to where we're busting at the seams at a 10 to where we feel like we just can't breathe. But you know what? Like, you're allowed to have those full moments. And if we could go back to like our childhood view of eating before diet culture, before our parents really, you know, messed us up, if we could go back to that a little bit and have some empathy, compassion, and just go, each meal can be a delight. And we just really have to have some empathy and just relax about it.
Mm-hmm. Well, Dana, this interview was so good.
I had such a nice time talking with you. You have great questions. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So to kind of wrap things up, you mentioned where people can kind of find you, but let's just kind of summarize that again. If they want to work with you, learn more about what you do, and then I have a couple little fun questions, but we'll start with where people can find you.
Hey, you know what? Whenever someone doing an interview says, I have a couple of fun questions, it's like those speed things, and they're like, what's your social security number? What's your last four digits of your credit card? No, I'm kidding.
Let's go.
Yeah, right, go. What's your mother's maiden name? Okay, where you can find me. So it's a little obnoxious, but it's very easy to remember. It's literally danasuchow.com. Instagram is at Dana Suchow. Twitter is at Dana Suchow. Facebook is at Dana Suchow. My email is dana@danasuchow.com. I mean, it's like annoyingly obnoxious, but it's consistent. And so the main ways to reach me, look, if you want to work with me one-on-one, or if you even want to just do an introductory call with me, if you feel like you're just having some issues, having some food and body image issues with you, your kids, your family, whatever it is, reach out. My main platform is Instagram, and my other, the easiest way to reach me is my email. So it's dana@danasuchow.com. And if you are looking for body positive resources, any help, I don't collect, information. It's just a static website. It's danasuchow.com/resources. And that has just a very extensive list for parents, for individuals, and for teens.
Awesome. And I'll put that stuff in the description of this video too.
Yeah, thanks.
So now for just a couple questions. So
Okay.
No rush, you can think about this, but I like to talk about dishes, and if you're the type of person who likes to clean the dishes right away and get them out of the sink, or if you're like leave them overnight and they kind of build up.
So that is actually such an interesting question. That's a complete left field question. I was not expecting. I am when you make a mess, you clean it up, because I don't like having things messy. So if I come home from a trip, I unpack as soon as I get home. If I cook the dishes, once in a blue moon, I leave them overnight. Since moving in with my boyfriend, his job is, I love to cook, so I'm happy to do that. His job is dishes, and we have found a great balance with it. So, but he works during the day, the only time he can do the dishes is like late at night. So I have had to learn that the dishes will be done, but not on my own time schedule. So, they'll get done at night. So I've learned to have to sit with dirty dishes, but that has been my own, I think good for my own mental health, is having to like challenge myself a little.
Yeah, I'm laughing because I can relate to you so much just with my boyfriend. It's the same thing. Like I've had to let go of needing the dishes to be out of the sink right away, and like it'll get done, right? It's just not on my time.
Exactly. And I mean, he's doing, like, I don't have to do them, but it also means that, by the end of the day with both of us, and, during, COVID, we're both, quarantined and working from home. So there's a lot of dishes. So, but you know what, I will take that with what a great partner he is. So, it's no one's perfect.
Exactly.
Including me, which I'm sure he would say the same exact thing.
Love it. Okay, so this second question is a bit more, think a little bit more than that, but it's, if you could travel back in time and tell your younger self one lesson that you've learned over the years, what would it be?
So, it's interesting because when I do a lot of inner child work, I used to, not so much, but and I would go back to like a 5-year-old me, a 10-year-old me, and do a lot of comforting, like, you're okay, you're safe, you're that kind of stuff. But I really think that kind of my real insecure, like the years that really got dark for me around body image and insecurity, I think I would go back to probably high school, maybe, 14, 15, 16, somewhere around there. If I could go back and really instill that, not only I don't need to be cool, I really had this thing where I've got to be cool. Like the cool kids are the popular kids. Like I've got to be cool. And I don't know, it was like, there's something around coolness. But just that I'm smart, I'm cool, I'm loved, I'm all of these things, regardless of if my skin's broken out, regardless of if I have body hair, regardless of if this, I didn't, pluck my eyebrows and my mustache and all that. And it was like, I wish I knew that stuff. And I wish somebody could hold me and tell me they love me no matter what, especially during that time. Because that was when things got very dark for me. And while I didn't have my eating disorder until I was 26, 14, 15, 16 was just, you know, getting into high school, I really just struggled.
Mm-hmm.
So I just wish I had an older me to come in and swoop me up and just, I don't know, hold me and tell me I'm okay.
Yeah, I think we all need that sometimes, you know, just, you're okay.
Yeah, but that's the essence of inner healing, of inner child healing, you know, is there was no one back then, but we can go back now. You know, I can go to my 14, 15, 16-year-old self and I can say, look, you're not in trouble. I forgive you. I'm here. Like, we can do the healing now that we so desperately needed when we were young, because it still counts. It still counts. And that teenager is still inside me. That 5-year-old is still inside me. And, you know, whoever's watching this, that teenager, whoever needed help back then, they're still inside you. They could still use the help now.
Yes, yes. Dana, this was so incredible. I'm so excited for people to watch this. I think it's going to be really life-changing for people. So thank you again. So just to wrap up, for those watching, I'd love to know what your biggest takeaway was. If you just comment below or you reach out to me, I'm sure Dana would love to hear from you too. That would,
hi.
yeah, and if you want to be the first to know about more interviews like this, then I'll leave my subscribe mailing list information in the description too. There's also additional resources to help you nurture your body through curiosity, compassion, and courage, so you too can find worth beyond measurement. Thank you again, Dana, and I'll see you next time.
Thank you so much for having me. All right, take care.